You had a lot of people die in the line of duty when you think of it. And we figured it was time to start. We haven't had the situation arise. This was a terrible situation. We haven't had it arise yet, but we're looking at going back a little bit and see what we can do about that. Yes, strongly. Yeah, go ahead.
On your call with President Putin today.
And I saw that it was discussed yesterday, so I thought, and people told me that they'd be honored to do it. I would imagine they would be. So, no, I think it would be maybe helpful.
In a shocking and unprecedented move, Walmart, the largest retail chain in the United States, has announced the immediate closure of dozens of stores across the country, citing the devastating impact of Trump-era tariffs as the final straw. For millions of Americans who rely on Walmart for jobs, affordable groceries, and basic household goods, the fallout is already being felt. What was once a political strategy aimed at reviving American manufacturing has now ricocheted back with brutal economic consequences, and it's hitting Main Street where it hurts the most. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. The announcement came during a hastily organized press conference at Walmart's headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas. CEO Doug McMillon confirmed that a total of 147 underperforming stores would be closed or phased out within the next 6 months, primarily in lower-income and rural areas. We simply cannot absorb the rising costs imposed by these tariffs without making tough decisions, McMillon stated. We've done everything we can to shield our customers from price hikes, but the supply chain pressure is unsustainable.
I think it'd be a great idea. Thank you.
Mr. President, as you know,
go ahead.
Mr. President, as you know, 2.5 months ago, Ukraine President Zelensky agreed to that 30-day ceasefire that's been on the table all of that time.
Many of the leaders of European nations on the line with me right after the call, and we have to get that thing solved. 5,000 young people.
What was the extent of your conversation with President Putin today about having him agree to that same 30-day ceasefire proposal that you, Mr. President, put on the table?
Well, what we've done, and very strongly, is we said, let's get this thing going. You know,
For years, Walmart operated on razor-thin margins, relying heavily on importing low-cost goods from countries like China, Vietnam, and Mexico. But with Trump's aggressive tariff policies, many of which remain intact, those cost advantages have evaporated. Basic staples like clothing, electronics, furniture, and even groceries have become more expensive to import. Rather than pass those costs entirely onto consumers, Walmart ate the losses. Until now. What makes this even more damaging is where the closures are happening. These aren't just stores in affluent urban areas where alternatives are plentiful. They're in towns where Walmart was the only major grocer, pharmacy, or job provider. In many communities, the store's departure is being compared to a factory shutting down. It doesn't just eliminate convenience, it cripples the local economy. Economists are calling this the clearest example yet of tariff blowback. Trump's policy was built on the idea of protecting American jobs and punishing foreign suppliers, particularly China. But in doing so, it disrupted the very supply chains that make U.S. consumer life affordable. And now, with inflation still high and consumer confidence teetering, Walmart's move could trigger a chain reaction throughout the retail industry. Insiders say the decision wasn't made lightly. Walmart executives reportedly held emergency meetings over the past several weeks as internal forecasts showed double-digit cost increases on imported goods across multiple categories. Even their private label products, long hailed as price-beating alternatives, have seen their profit margins collapse. The closures, while abrupt, are part of a larger effort to refocus on profitability and limit exposure to volatile global trade conditions. Politically, the fallout is explosive. Within hours of the announcement, Trump loyalists lashed out at Walmart, accusing the company of exaggerating the impact of tariffs and using the closures as a political statement.
There's tremendous bitterness, anger, and I think maybe that could help some of that anger. So having it at the Vatican would be, in Rome, would be a very...
You mentioned that the Pope would like to take a role potentially in mediating these talks. Does that mean that the U.S. is taking a step back from?
No. I think it would be great to have it at the Vatican. Maybe it would have some extra significance.
If Walmart can't adapt, that's on them, said one conservative commentator on cable news. American companies should be investing in American-made goods. But supply chain experts were quick to clap back, noting that the U.S. simply does not have the domestic manufacturing infrastructure to produce at the scale and price Walmart demands, especially not overnight. Democratic lawmakers wasted no time seizing on the crisis. Senator Elizabeth Warren released a scathing statement, blaming the closures on economic nationalism masquerading as strategy and calling for a full review of the tariff program. Meanwhile, Senator Bernie Sanders tweeted, "When billion-dollar corporations have to shut down because of tariffs, imagine what working families are dealing with. This is a failure from top to bottom." Walmart employees are already feeling the pain. Thousands of workers are facing layoffs, with limited options in many of the affected areas. For single mothers, elderly workers, and those with limited mobility, the news is more than inconvenient. It's devastating. Some have worked at their local Walmart for decades and now face uncertain futures with little warning. Community leaders are equally rattled. In small towns across Ohio, Texas, Alabama, and the Midwest, local mayors are holding emergency meetings, trying to figure out how to fill the vacuum left behind. "It's not just a store, it's our town's lifeline," said one mayor from rural Kentucky. "Without Walmart, we lose sales tax revenue, we lose employment, and people are forced to drive hours just to buy essentials." The broader retail industry is watching closely. If Walmart, with its deep pockets and massive logistical advantage, can't survive the current tariff pressure, what hope do smaller retailers have? Already, analysts are predicting that Walmart's move could set off a new wave of store closures among chains like Target, Dollar General, and Kroger, especially in regions most dependent on imports. Stock markets responded swiftly. Walmart's shares dipped sharply after the news broke, dragging down other retail stocks as well. Meanwhile, import-dependent companies from apparel to tech began issuing revised forecasts, warning investors that they too may have to restructure if tariff conditions continue. The Dow closed down 300 points, with retail and logistics sectors leading the slide. This marks a dramatic turning point for an economic strategy that many already viewed as flawed. Trump's tariffs were always controversial, drawing criticism for inflating prices while failing to boost domestic job creation in a meaningful way. But until now, the consequences had been somewhat abstract: minor price hikes, diplomatic tensions, and disrupted trade talks. Now, Americans are seeing the tangible impact in the form of closed doors, pink slips, and communities left behind. Walmart has pledged to support affected employees with transition assistance and severance packages. But even they admit the road ahead is rocky. The closures won't be the last if conditions don't improve. And unless the U.S. revisits its trade strategy or finds a way to massively invest in domestic production, more economic fallout is inevitable. At the heart of this crisis is a fundamental contradiction. Americans want cheap goods and abundant choice, but political policies are increasingly at odds with the global systems that make that possible. Walmart's collapse in dozens of towns across the country is a reminder that slogans like "America First" come with a very real cost.